I really think a champion is defined not by their wins, but how they can recover when they fall. And that is a quote from Serena Williams. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Toya Talks podcast. Listen, I've been away for a week and it definitely feels like I've been away for longer. It's just so weird. But I have missed recording. I'm in a different spot. I'm actually still recording in the house, but I'm in like my dressing area. I just wanted like a change of scenery. I say that and then the blinds are closed. But for me, I didn't need to take a week off. I'm glad that I anticipated that I would be taking a week off. And for a lot of you that follow me on social media, you know that I had my wedding blessing on the 27th of August. And it's been a year in the making. And it took a lot out of me. And I'm just exhausted. I'm absolutely exhausted. I almost feel like I need a year to get over it. And I thought that this week I'd come here today and we'd talk about, you know, the financial aspects of the wedding blessing, the emotional aspects of it. There was a lot of emotional discoveries that I made within myself, but I'm still decompressing and unpacking some of that. So I kind of feel like this is not the episode to have that discussion, especially when also as well, I have encouraged you all to watch Mortgage or Marriage or Marriage or Mortgage on Netflix, which I think will be quite pertinent to that episode when I do record it. And I think for me as well, it was what the day symbolized. It was to obviously pay honor to my dad and the ancestors as well. My father is now an ancestor, but my ancestors, because my ancestors stay working, they stay on job, you know, and there's just so much that happened from an emotional perspective that I feel like I may need to have a conversation with my therapist and then record that episode. And I do want to speak about the finances part of it because, you know, we have previous episodes on financial literacy, financial understanding, and I'm very big on that, especially from the perspective of, you know, where a lot of us haven't come from money. And there's this societal pressure to keep up with the Joneses. You only have to go on Instagram, Bella Niger, any of those social media handles. Sorry, I'm going to close this window because the aircraft that are crafting, the fact that I'm not even on an aeroplane is even making me to be angry. Yeah, I feel like when you see certain things on social media, yeah, you know, and there's nothing wrong with kind of aspiring to that or, you know, being encouraged by it. But I think it places pressure on people who are planning their weddings to do what people do. And I get that, you know, obviously everyone likes nice things. I think for me, what was really clear for me and for Kay was about being financially honest with our pockets. And if we can't afford it, it means we're not supposed to have it. And there were certain things that were fundamental. I never had to compromise on anything because I felt like I was being reasonable. I felt like Kay was being reasonable. We negotiated where we felt that we needed to. Where we didn't, we got a reasonable price for. So I have said this on Instagram, I'm saying it again here. I will give a range figure rather than a ballpark figure. And the only reason for that is because it depends on the package that you select with a particular vendor. And obviously, the price that I'm providing is based on our packages. It doesn't include any price increases. You know, a lot of people are increasing their prices in accordance to RPI. The cost of living crisis is real. But I think it's good to have these type of conversations, and I think it's important to have that you know, financial visibility, because I feel like when it comes to weddings, people are not very transparent, and I don't know whether it's like a secret society thing or what that is, but I think for me it's important to discuss finances so that we can like dismantle some of the preconceived ideas we have about certain things and how much they cost, and also shed light on the things that don't make sense. I can give you an example. You know, flowers are crazy. You're looking to pay between £2,000 to £10,000 on flowers, real flowers at that. And I'm telling you, I'd even pay up to £200 for my flowers because I got all of them from Etsy. Big shout out to my friend Nkechi who put me on, and I sorted out my centerpieces myself. There were 10 tables, 10 centerpieces. I did all my arranging myself, and all of the centerpieces were collected in the morning by the wedding coordinators. So that's just an example of what's to come in that future episode. And also to just reassure people that having an amazing wedding blessing, being in budget, if you have a budget, and being financially savvy are all things that are achievable and possible when you're doing a wedding blessing. And I think that the ultimate thing is to understand that you're doing it for yourself, because people will come, they'll celebrate, they'll eat and go home. No one should be looking for £10 in the morning to get an Uber. Do you understand? Like, I don't know how people live like that. And that's probably one of my fears, like living above your means to the point where you're struggling in the morning. And it feels great during the day or in the time, in the moment when you spend all that money. But the reality is, life goes on and the next day will arrive. So we will speak about that more in that Marriage to Mortgage episode. And talk about Marriage to Mortgage, there is a program I want you all to be encouraged to watch as well. It's coming out on Tuesday and it's called Get Smart with Money, and it's on Netflix. Financial advisors share their simple tips on spending less and saving more with people looking to take control of their funds and achieve their goals. I always feel like, this was directed by Stephanie Scoting. And I always think it's really important, like, we watch things like that. There's something to learn. And I think more importantly, I don't think you ever stop learning about financial literacy, especially when you've come from nothing, especially if you're nouveau riche. Do you see my accent? Nouveau riche. Your new money, you know. And I definitely believe that this generation is new money in how we see money, how we make money, multiple revenue streams, you know, even to be in a position of, you know, understanding how you can monetize your skill set and go into contracting and command a certain amount of money. And I definitely think this is a generation of multiple incomes. And when you have multiple income streams, I think there lies an issue if you do not have the financial literacy to understand how to save money, how to invest money, and also how to multiply money. I feel like some people are so distracted, and I think, you know, a classic example of that is like rappers. Rappers want the image that goes with what they're doing, that lifestyle. A lot of them own chains but don't own their houses. Do you understand what I'm saying? Equally as well, I feel like, you know, there's this wave of an era where people are buying houses, and that's amazing. But people are buying houses without realizing how they're going to pay their mortgage. Some people are buying houses and not understanding, actually, if I buy a house of this value, am I able to keep up with the mortgage repayments? How do I fix my mortgage so that this not only is feasible for me and achievable for me? How long do I fix the mortgage for? I feel like those are the financial literacy conversations that I'm hoping to encourage and hopefully further encourage with the episode that I have coming, Mortgage versus Money. So, first and foremost, I really want to give a shout out to India from Love Island, and I think her surname is Pollock. I think she's done amazing. I love the way she carries herself. I think for all of us, a lot of people who are quite passionate about India, I mean, for me, I'm quite passionate about her success because, number one, you know, she's a black woman and we support queens over here. Secondly of all, I think she symbolizes the possibility for people either in that industry or just black women in general. You know, when we see people who look like us in the public eye doing well, you know, we see ourselves. So that's why I think it was always very important that she gets the brand deals. You know, I spoke a little bit about it in the last episode, but I mean, I just really want to celebrate her. So first of all, she's a brand ambassador for Boots. That was announced last week, which I think is absolutely in line with her branding. And I love that for her. And also she's been signed by Pretty Little Thing, and they've launched a Pretty Little Thing marketplace, which I think, again, you know, suits India. But Pretty Little Thing, I think that, you know, we've got them in a chokehold because I didn't like what they were moving with. And I did discuss this in the last episode, but I think what we're now seeing is a move from India into uncharted territory, in that a lot of the people that come out of Love Island go into fashion, they get the fashion deals and that's it. But we're now seeing the diversity of her brand going into beauty. And remember, Boots houses so many beauty brands, and I just love India's aesthetic. I love that she's a black queen, and I love that how she carries herself on social media. I like that for her. And I like how supportive Dami is. And I think that we all have a clear understanding about, as Black women, how we are portrayed in the media, how we are portrayed in fashion, how we are used by these brands. And I feel like, well, for me, I'm very happy to see India kind of pursuing, and utilizing the platform that Love Island has provided her with. So let's watch this space and let's, as much as possible, to support her. Because ultimately, she does well by the support we give her. And we know that the power of the Black Pound. So let's kind of be proactive in that support. So if you guys have been following me on social media, you'll know that I recently did a post. Well, I do post very regularly. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is Toya_Washington. And the post I did was, one thing I know for sure, there are people who have used the Toya Talks platform and basked in the fruits of the results. Anyone downplaying my platform and what it has done is sowing a dishonest seed, and they will surely reap. Karma is a bastard. When it arrives, remember the seed you sowed. Be it jealousy or straight up tomfoolery, one thing I know for sure, my ancestors will never allow shit to continue smelling. Now, the reason I posted this, and I'm going to just...
On the Future is Freelance podcast, we believe freelancing is the future of life, work, and everything. So whether you're brand new to working independently or you're a seasoned pro, we'd love you to listen. Every episode unpacks new ideas on how to make your future freelance. Whether you need to achieve business minimalism, survive a solopreneur crisis, or find the right digital nomad visa and community, we've got you covered. Alongside actionable insight on everything from finding gigs to outsourcing support services, even mastering TikTok with no dancing required. Subscribe to The Future is Freelance on your favourite podcasting app via the link in your show notes.
Keep this very brief. It came to my attention recently that particular persons had downplayed my platform. And one thing I'll always say is this: you don't have to like me. There is no obligation to like me. But what you will not do is disrespect or downplay the strength and power of the Toya Talks podcast and platform. This platform has transformed the lives of many, many Black women, both domestically and internationally, and how we navigate the world of work successfully. And the results speak for themselves. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, because it's not a small fry. It's a big deal. It's a big deal when, as Black women, we can have a platform that single-handedly changes the way that we view how we are at work. Because one thing is for sure, we all have to work and make money. Now, being able to be successful, not everybody, number one, some people don't even think they can be successful. Not everybody has a shared understanding of what success is, or a shared definition. But number three, once you show people the blueprint, once you share or create safe spaces to share, and people utilize the platform and are able to mold the platform into their industry to be able to be successful, what you're not going to do is downplay my platform, because I don't have no sponsors. I don't have no financial investments. I am my own financial investor. It is blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into creating this platform. Both the podcast, the website, the masterclasses, and all the things that I do that are so removed from social media that until I come to the podcast, people do not know. I have advocated for people through ACAS. I've sat there and done grievances. I have been in situations where organizations have called me in to be part of panels, and some things I never discuss. But believe me, when I tell you, I work damn hard on this platform. So I'll be damned if I allow it to just go unspoken of, that somebody could downplay my platform, because not only does it help the queens, but the kings are also benefiting from the platform too. Now, what is the irony about this is the people that downplay my platform are the people that have fully immersed, used, utilized, sucked out of this platform. And the fact that you have money in your pocket is because this platform helped you to get it. One thing you can never do is pretend that this platform has not successfully helped you, because there are people who it has successfully helped. I come in here, I share my experiences, we share our experiences, and I give the blueprint. I don't have to do that, but I do it because I believe in legacy. I do it because I believe that if we are able to share the blueprint and share our experiences, success won't be here and there. Success will be generally experienced. And for me, like, I can never think of us. It just blows my mind how I could be successful in isolation without sharing. I'm just not that person. You know, I'm the person that is willing to sit here and say, this is what I did. This is what I did. And I have so many messages, emails, DMs, you name it, of the success stories of this platform. And I'm telling you now, some people message me and I thank them. I'm like, thank you for reminding me of my why. Because sometimes it gets hard. It does get hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it doesn't get hard. Sometimes it gets hard, especially when I feel as though, especially earlier on, when I felt that the Toya Talks podcast and platform wasn't getting recognition. I found that hard until I realized that that wasn't part of the deal. You know, recognition for me is from you guys. It's not necessarily from the brands. It's not from other platforms. It's actually you all. You all are the success stories of the Toya Talks podcast and platform, because you share with me how you've used an episode, the platform, anything Toya Talks related, and achieved first-hand success. And I also hear the second-hand success when you guys share the knowledge with other people understand the brand, they lock into the podcast and the platform, they buy a masterclass, and then they come to me and say, I heard from this person, or I overheard this. That to me has always been my greatest marketing tool, is all of you guys. And with me, what you see is what you get. I don't do fake, I don't do phony, I do real life, I do vibes, and I do honesty. So you can imagine, when I was told about this, I was disgusted. More than anything else, I wasn't even angry. I was disgusted because the same people downplaying the platform not only have utilized, they sucked it. They drank into it. And this is why I say you've got to be careful. Because, and I say it all the time on the podcast, and I'm being serious when I say this, when someone helped you, when you're utilizing something, when something is given to you with a clean heart and clean hands, and you use your same hands to slap the person on both sides, you have sown a seed of karma and you're gonna reap it. Because what you cannot do is downplay the hands that have helped you. You cannot downplay the hand that has fed you and then seek to almost get some type of joy out of downplaying something that you firsthand have used, time you have used, money and resources you have used or acted onto to be able to gain the knowledge from here. Do you understand? Now, I always say this, and I'm serious when I say this. I know for a fact that the ancestors not only have me covered, but every time I sit here to record, it is led by the ancestors, because sometimes I have an episode and it will be written here and it will go completely to something else, and somebody somewhere will always reach out to me and say, Toya, this was for me. Toya, I learned something here. So for me, this whole entire podcast is spiritual. That's how I look at it. It's a spiritual awakening of the mind of queens. And I learned so much from all of you too, because I feel like when I come here, I share, I decompress, I learned something. I learned something about not just myself, but I learned something about what I feel in the community that we need to collectively be willing to open and share. Listen, I'm all for the jokes. You guys know I'm a class A clown. I'm all for all of that. But be very careful. Be very careful how you come for people's platform, because when you have a letter before action in front of you and you're quivering like a fox on heat, you better know that it's the seed that you sowed. Do not come for me unless I have sent for you. And when I send for you, make sure you come correct, because I'm not here for that. There is enough space for everybody without being stupid. Do you understand? You don't have to like me, but you will respect my platform and you will respect me. And if you can't do those things, then keep your mouth shut. But what you're not going to do is come for the platform. We're not doing that. Not today, not tomorrow, not next year or the year after. If you have a problem with me, then you deal with that between you and your God. You understand? Get your ancestors to chat to my ancestors. They'll come chat to me. Okay? Right. I'm not really too sure about the title of this episode because I have something written down and I'm like, ancestors, really? I don't know. So one of my friends, so before she went on holiday, she basically told me that she was taking on another assignment. She's a contractor like myself. And where she was taking the assignment, I've worked there before. And I said to her, girl, it's a no. They're crazy. But knowing my friend, and quite rightly so, she wanted to have her own experience. And more importantly, I think as a friend, it's important that I just warn her of what my experiences were. Anyway, she went ahead and started working there. And she described it as hell in capital letters. Now, what I didn't realize is how bad it was until I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday last week. She sends me a message and she says, Toya, I need to resign today. Can you help me draft a resignation letter? Now, one thing about my friends, they'll tell you, if you need me, I'm available, I'm there. I don't ask too many questions. I just want to know the facts. I will help you. But because I already know what she's experiencing, I wasn't too surprised. But I think because she's not a spontaneous person like that. So I was taken aback about the randomness of that message. So I reached back out to her and I said, of course, I'm here, but I need to understand what's happened in order to write the resignation letter, and I need to know what's contained within your contract. Let's have a conversation. So before I could even press send, she had called me and she said, listen, Toya, now she's very seasoned in what she does. She works very hard. And I, for one, can sit here and say she's very talented. So this organization that she has gone to, they're mad. They're crazy. They're crazy. Absolutely batshit. But to know how many years after I've been there that they're still the same is actually quite disappointing, because it means that they've just gotten worse. So the pandemic didn't teach them nothing. They learned nothing. The employees there are still miserable. Like, it's a lot. So she had said to me that in her first week, first of all, she had said to me that there was all white men, no women. So for me already, that would have been a red flag, because I don't work in places where it's all white men. I'm so sorry. No, I don't work in those places, because I know that I will now be the center of conversation. It's almost like I feel like the moving target. So maybe it's a me issue, but I don't like that. I need to see some type of, I like to work in multicultural organizations, if I'm being completely honest. But if it's just majority white men and it's just me as a black woman, that's not going to work for me. My mental health dictates that that's not going to work. So she then also shared with me that she only gets paid based on the achievement of milestones. So I was like, girl, you are a whole contractor. That's bullshit, especially when milestones are contingent on things outside of your control. For example, your stakeholders, who may be internal and external stakeholders. I was like, that's crazy. I was like, why did you agree to that? Now, I know part of it is the financial element of having another contract, having another consultant agreement. I get all of that. But I don't agree with, trading off your mental health for money. I personally don't agree with that. But, you don't know people's pockets. We are in a financial crisis at the moment. The cost of living is crazy. So, I get it. My thing is, let me get to the facts so I can do a robust resignation in line with her contract to get her out of this. She wants out. So then she said to me, in her first week, she had been pulled up on performance concerns. Now, the reason that is a problem for me is anyone's first week, you should not be discussing performance. It's called acclimatizing to your new environment. That's what that first week is, acclimatization. So when somebody's now coming in your first week to talk about performance issue, how are you able to assess someone's performance when they're in a new environment, they're learning new systems, new processes, That doesn't work. But what does make sense is, as a black woman, they are nitpicking now. And what I don't like about that is when she's working with all these white men, not only is she self-conscious, but you are now sowing a seed and planting a seed of doubt. And what that does is erodes her self-esteem. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I didn't know all of this until the Tuesday or Wednesday when she contacted me. But she'd already been there for about, I believe, 5 or 6 weeks. So how she has managed for that long, I honestly do not know. And she said to me, I think it was a demonstration of manhood. He wanted me to know that he's in charge. He wanted to assert himself. And the only way he could do that is attack my performance, because he understands that that is, I've come here to deliver and perform. They knew that. They interviewed me. But they know that's the single one thing that can cause me to kind of almost be hesitant to be able to deliver, because you're then made to feel as though what you're doing is never going to be good enough. And it's a form of control. That's what it is. It's a form of control. Now, what has happened to this confident black queen is now she become a shadow of herself. So she said, Toya, every time I want to send something or I've done a report or something, I'm second guessing myself now, which means I am now having those performance issues that I didn't have in that first week, because I don't feel confident enough in my work to feel like I won't be scrutinized to the point of now where I feel like I'm being held hostage by overthinking. And that kind of broke my heart, because I was like, 6 weeks and this is what happened. So what happened if she stayed there for 6 months? She'd be a shadow of herself. I just don't get it. So I said to her, what's her notice period? So she said her notice period is 20 days. So she has to give 20 days notice. I said, so what do you want to do? She goes, I'm willing to give them 5 days, because I've worked out that they have to pay me my milestone, because I would have achieved it within 5 days. And within that 5 days, I'm able to give them a handover, which, to be fair, Toya, I don't have to give. But for me and my personal integrity, I'm willing to give it to them. So I said to her, listen, it's more than most will give, considering. One thing that she did make clear to me is how vulnerable she felt. And part of the reason she felt vulnerable is because this particular role is outside IR35. So those contractors who understand the concept of inside scope and outside scope, you understand what it is. Those people who maybe you're not a contractor, or maybe you just don't know what outside of scope is. Basically, if you're working outside of IR35, you do your own taxes, you've got an accountant, and you're able to expense a lot of things. It's a lot more lucrative as a consultant to work outside of IR35. Now, the new legislation that came into effect, I believe almost 2 years ago now, has meant that, unfortunately, a lot of roles are inside IR35, where you have to work through an umbrella company. You don't get to expense anything against your business. And you still earn good money, I believe, as long as your day rate is high. You still earn good money inside scope. But it means that you pay tax at source as well. And you don't really need an accountant for that, because you're already paying the taxes through the umbrella company. Now, there are some, I don't know if you'd call them perks of an umbrella company, insofar as you do get holiday pay and things like that. But the whole idea of being a consultant is having that freedom and being that freelance to be able to make your money, expense stuff like travel, food, meetings, and you can do that outside of IR35, but you can't do it inside IR35. So you'll find that a majority of roles are inside scope, and the way to kind of mitigate, not making as much money is to try and get a higher day rate as possible. Now, for my friend, and we're going to call my friend Raina is outside of IR35, and it makes her vulnerable. It makes her vulnerable because she's heavily scrutinized now, because the way they look at it is, as an organization, they're spending all this money. They want to realize that money every single minute of every single day. And it's not every organization that operates like that, but there are some organizations that feel that it's almost like a privilege to be working outside of scope. So they're going to keep their foot on your neck. And what happens when you keep your foot on someone's neck? How are they going to breathe to be able to deliver the work in which you have contracted them to do? And I think that when you are outside of scope, it does make you quite vulnerable. It makes you quite vulnerable because you get used to this money. Yeah. So some people that, especially with my friend Raina, I think she put up with a lot of shit, and she put up with the self-esteem battering because she's thinking about the money. When in fact, I think it's the wrong way to look at it. You can make money without being battered. You can make money without having to trade your self-esteem, because what happens is you trade in your self-esteem, you end up leaving, as my friend is doing, and then you're not mentally equipped for the next role because you're having to counsel yourself and go through therapy to deal with any trauma or any pre-existing trauma from the last role. So can you see where sometimes, whilst the money is delicious, there is a balancing act that needs to be done. And I feel like mental health comes before everything. And I'm telling you, I have walked out of jobs because of my mental health. I swear to God, the role where she's working, I only lasted 3 weeks there because my mental health couldn't go into the 4th week without a breakdown. And even I knew that no matter how sweet the money is, how can I spend it if I'm going to have to now use all that money to pay for therapy? It don't make no sense. So we drafted the termination letter, so terminating the contract. And I gave her a pep talk because she was very anxious because, again, this is not the person that went into that contract. This is not the person. This is the person who is now dealing with the effects of being attacked for her performance, but no one actually telling her what's wrong with the performance. She asked the question. They couldn't even say anything to her. They couldn't give her example of performance issues. It's like they just threw it out there to unnerve her. And maybe, there's some sick employers, sick line managers, sick HR people that will attack your performance, not actually tell you what's wrong with the performance, but do it because they think it's going to encourage you to work harder. Can you understand how sick that is? I'm going to mentally floor you so that you're encouraged to work harder. That is not a proactive way to encourage people, and it shows a lack of managerial skills. If you do not know how to motivate your staff to work harder, other than to demean them and crush them, you have a problem. You are a bully. That is a microaggression, and that is unacceptable. And I continue to say, as employees, whether you are a contractor, whether you're an employee, fixed term, part-time, full-time, you have leverage. As long as you can make yourself a subject matter expert, you have leverage, even if you've been there for 24 hours, because they do not want to go through the recruitment process to hire somebody again. It costs time, money, and it requires a lot of energy. That in itself is leverage. We need to start seeing the leverage we have from day one. It's not necessary. The leverage you have is weighted more the longer you're there, of course, because then you start molding the role to how you want it. You start getting comfortable with the process. You become an even more seasoned subject matter expert. But if you really think about leverage and how leverage works, and I've spoken about this in the salary negotiation masterclass on the toytalks.com website, leverage starts from day one. If you understand the value of the leverage from day one, and that leverage is you have gone through a process where you have been given a role. That is leverage. Because when you say, I don't want this role no more, you're sending them back to do the work again. They don't want to have to do that. They're already thinking about the next project. So we spoke about her resignation. I told her where her leverage sits. I try to reassure her that it may not be a great conversation, but it's a conversation she's having remotely. So she needs to utilize that power and that strength. And even if it was face to face, you still have the opportunity to walk away. No one's going to beat you. No one's going to beat your ass. So I didn't hear from her. 24 hours, I didn't hear. And I'm not the type of person that's going to like, are you okay? Are you okay? I thought if I don't hear from her, in another day or so, I might just text her. But the next day, the 24 hours later, I didn't hear from her. Then the following day, she calls me and she says, Toya. I said, yeah. She says, I don't know what I would have done without that conversation. I was like, listen, it's cool. What happened? She says, Toya, they're begging me to stay. I said, of course they are. Of course they are. I said, read to me what they said, or did you take notes? She said, yeah. She said, Toya, they said, oh, can we talk about it? That they think I'm being too drastic. See, gaslighting her. Drastic after you told her performance was shit. Why do you want her to stay? You should be happy she's going. Because you used it as a tool, as a weapon. And now that person's turned around and used that weapon against you and said, okay, F you, I'm out. So they basically said to her that they want her to do the 20 days. And she said, well, no. If you have an issue with my performance, I don't see why you want me to stay longer. So that my performance still becomes an issue. In fact, you have single-handedly tried to attack my self-esteem, and I'm trying to recover it before it depletes entirely. Therefore, I'm only giving you 5 days. And if you see it as a breach of contract, sue me. That's what she said. Because they're not going to do that. Like, they're not. They really are not. But also as well, there was a clause in the contract that said that it was to be mutually agreed. So it's not mutually agreed if they don't agree. But if she says she's doing 5 days and she's giving you a handover, as an organization, you're going to snap that up with both hands, because you could risk her doing 20 days notice and giving you no handover, and you'd be worse off. And that's exactly their thought process. So they agreed to the 5 days. And, you know, I said to her, what did you learn from this? Excuse me. What did you learn from this? She said, I learned to put my mental health first, but I also learned that people will attack your performance, not because you're not a great performer, but because they can. And sometimes it really just is as simple as that. Like, there is a confidence that we have to find when we go into these places. And it's really difficult, especially if a job is your first job. This is your first experience of the working world. You don't necessarily go with confidence other than hoping that you're good enough. But I'm here to reassure you that you're good enough, because they said yes because you were good enough. If you wasn't good enough, they wouldn't say yes. So let's start with our self-esteem from that perspective. But I definitely think that we have to guard our self-esteem like it's a Fabergé egg, because I feel like it's too easy, especially during a cost of living crisis, especially when people are trying to hold on to their jobs, to attack people and think that that's an acceptable approach to managing people. And it really is not. I feel so sorry for my friend, because she's always been a very confident person. I don't know her to, be this person who was very much a shadow of herself. Like, she's never, she does listen to the podcast and the platform, but she's never had to come to me and ask me to do a resignation, but I think that her nerves were so shattered that she didn't even believe in her own judgment. And that to me was alarm bells. And I just said to her, you need to take a week or two off. That money you made, you need to take some time off. And even if you just stay in your house, even if you just, go to a spa, but you need to be kind to yourself, because what you're now needing to do is replenish what somebody has taken from you. And that's kind of tough. And she said, I never really looked at it like that, Toya. I said, but when somebody takes something away, you feel the loss. You have to put it back. You have to be able to rebuild that confidence by being kind to yourself and accepting that you are worthy. And this is the point, right? Where we work in and amongst people who often treat us like we're not worthy. And then you start to believe it. And then it becomes very dangerous, because that becomes the backdrop of how you go into the world of work. I always remember, and those people that followed me on Snapchat, when I would be basically every day Snapchatting to and from work. Like, there's so many people that say to me they miss that. I don't miss that, because my shoulders were often hunched over. My eyes were very tired, because there were certain roles where, yes, I was a subject matter expert. Yes, I was confident. But there was always a battle that had to be done before I could do my job. And I knew the power I wielded, but I'm a very different person now to who I was a few years ago, because I definitely understand also the fundamental aspect of how the world of work has changed so much. And the pandemic has a lot to do with that. I definitely think that a lot of my personal work experiences has made me who I am. But when I start to pay attention to mental health, I think there's certain decisions I should have made sooner, could have made sooner, and should have made sooner, because I feel like a lot of these managers, they get away with so much because nobody's willing to challenge them. And I'm not saying challenging always comes from making a formal complaint, but challenging someone can also mean saying the words no. Challenging someone is asking for the example. You don't get away with saying something and putting a statement out there without giving me an example, because if you don't give me an example, then it doesn't exist. And if you give me an example that doesn't make sense, I would want you to further explain. Let us get into the habit of policing our self-esteem enough and guarding it enough to ask questions when somebody attempts to attack it. Your self-esteem and confidence is built over time. It's not something that you build overnight. It's over time of having to overcome self-doubt, having to trust yourself and trust your decisions. And also, I believe it also comes from the experiences where we felt like we overcame. That's where a lot of our confidence comes from. So can you see what people are trying to attack? They're trying to attack something that has been built over time. So we have a duty to ourselves to police that. Because when you start policing that, you start seeing things a lot clearly when you question certain things. And I believe there's a respectful way to question things. When you question things and somebody's offended by you questioning things, that's because they have a problem with being challenged, because they get away with saying what you want. You can't just say what you want to people. It doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. And sometimes it gets bloody exhausting. It bloody gets exhausting, but I don't mind being extremely exhausted if it means that I have to protect my self-esteem. I've worked really hard for it. And as a Black woman, we're constantly being attacked or being given these subliminal messages in the media. And we're having to deal with that every day. Talk less of going into work or working from home or just working for an organization and navigate in spaces where we're made to feel uncomfortable, even though they gave us the yes and offered us the job in the first place. Talking about that and staying on, the topic of this, I also had and I say experience, but something really interesting happened last week, and I made a note of it because I didn't want to talk about it here. And obviously, like my contract, as a contractor, your contract being renewed is, you often hopefully you have those discussions before the end of the contract, or you understand what the hiring manager's pipeline is. And so for me, I'm getting renewed, and I know I'm getting renewed. But until I see pen to paper, I don't play games with my money. Like, if you're not signing a paper, I don't see an extension paper, I'm going to have conversations with other people. And that's exactly what's happened. So those people who are contractors, at least a month or two before, you should even be keeping abreast of what's happening in the industry anyway, in your industry. But for me, 2 months before, I'm having conversation. I want to know what's happening. And for those of you who maybe don't understand what's happening in the commercial space, I say commercial space, but more the world of work, right? During the summer, people are away on holiday. They're not really hiring. People hire, right? But you'll find that interviews take longer to get dates, etc., etc. So as we're in September, between September and I would say the first week of December, jobs start picking up. Hiring managers are back now. Interviews are happening. But in those summer months, it's a bit sketchy. But it doesn't stop me from having conversations. I tell you guys all the time, whether you're a permie, whether you're a contractor, whatever the situation is, you still should know what's going on in your industry. You should still be seeing jobs. You should still be reading job specs. You should still be doing those things, because you are not a sitting duck for nobody. So I have quite a few contacts, and I got in contact with a particular person. I said, listen, just to let you know, this is the situation. I'm open. And he was like, oh, brilliant. And within 24 hours, he came to me with something. And I've had a couple of conversations. So I've got a few pots cooking in the cooker. And 24 hours, he came back to me, there's this, and the third. And I never heard from him for a few days. And one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to chase you, No, if you put me forward for something, I ain't chasing you. Unless I feel like my time scales are getting peak, then I may send you an email, but I'm not going to call you and hunt you down. I'm just not that person. So the recruiter called me. Hey, Toya, how you doing? I'm good. He was like, oh, Toya, this particular role, there is an interim there, a contractor there at the moment. However, the organisation have hired a perm who starts in a month's time. This perm used to be a contractor. He has now gone to perm. And he's looked at your CV with a fine-tooth comb, and he thinks your CV is amazing. In fact, he said it's consistent. And he loves your experience and working for different organisations and industries. So all of this is fluff. So I'm thinking, what is this guy going to say? He loves the fact that you were working for a particular organization as a perm, you went contracting and came back to the organization to contract there, because it shows, that you were very valued there. But he has a couple of questions that he would like me to pose to you. So I was like, okay, what's the questions? He said, well, these two particular roles you had at the same time. And in this one role, you had 4 people reporting into you and you still had another role. So he wanted to know how you managed those roles. Queens, do you know how dumb that question is? Do you know how dumb? So I took a step back and I thought, he's mad. And he's angry. And he's entitled. He's just angry that he has now gone from consulting to a perm. He's pissed. He's mad at himself for not utilizing the ability of contractors to have more than one contract. He's pissed. So he wants to know, not, how I managed it. He wants to know, who do you think you are for having that situation? And the question don't make sense. So I said to the recruiter, this question don't make sense. He said, why do you think it don't make sense? I said, because one of these contracts, I was there for almost 2 years as a contractor. I said, that's a win. When a contract is only there for 6 months and you're getting renewed up until almost 2 years, that in itself says I was delivering. So I'm not going to sit here and start justifying how I was delivering. The mere fact I was there for almost 2 years and I had another role for almost a year and that was getting renewed. I mean, when he asked the question how I managed both, I think the time I was there answers the question. I was clearly doing it very successfully. I said, as a contractor, I have non-exclusivity to any organization, and that's what makes me a contractor. That's why I fall outside of IR35, because I'm able to do different hours and have multiple contracts. That makes me compliant with IR35. And being able to have 2 contracts, I said, I got a friend that has 4. We're consultants. That's what we do. We consult. And I said, I have the skill set to be able to consult on multiple organizations, on multiple projects within my industry. And that's exactly what I did. So when he asked how I cope, maybe the time in which I spent in both should answer that question. The recruiter went quiet. He couldn't say nothing. Don't come to me with that transferable energy, because I ain't having that shit. You want the recruiter to do the dirty work. But I had to pull up the recruiter because he has to also use his brain. He's got to use his brain. You're coming to ask me that question. It's not like I was there for 6 months and the other one I was there for 3. One role I was there for almost 2 years. The other role I was there for over a year. Like, what are we talking about here? I'm bloody good at my job. That's how I was basically able to do both. And that's exactly what I said to him. And I said, it wasn't a joke and it wasn't easy. The projects weren't easy. But I made it work. And I gave equal and ample amount of time for the successful delivery of both projects in 2 separate organizations. And I'll do it again. Then the second question, he said, one of your first roles within your industry, you was working at PwC. However, you've only got a few bullet points of what you did. So the new hiring manager wants to know why it's quite light. So I said to the recruiter, how long is my CV? He said it's 5 pages. I said, with the level of experience and seniority, do you think 5 pages is an accurate reflection of my experience? He said, no, I think it's probably about 10 when you've condensed it. I said, so why would my first job within my industry, why would he, and that's over 10 years ago, why would he expect it to take over a page? When I have more relevant and more recent experience, which I think, is clearly reflected on the CV. I said, this sounds like nitpicking and I'm not here for it. I said, I'm so sorry. I worked for PwC. I've worked for Goldman Sachs. I've worked for some big hitters. And I'm having to condense this CV to 5 pages when it should be about 15. So when he's asking about my very first job, what does he want me to tell you? That I was at the printer printing minutes? That I was on a course understanding procurement? That I was working for an organization that was developing their procurement strategy and I was literally, helping the development of that? Like, what does he want me to say? And he said, you know what, Toya, I actually apologize because you're right. I said, let me give you an example. what was your first job? He said he can't even remember. I said, well, I remember mine. I'm very proud of it. That's why I wrote it there. I said, but you know what? Maybe I should take it off because it's more than 10 years old. But I feel like it shows that I have experience working for different organizations in different industries. That's why I keep it there. And let me tell you something. Because of my level of seniority, that's why I get away with 5 pages. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm a consultant. Most consultants have 5 pages. And I'm going to be honest with you when I say this. I've been in my industry for a very, very, very long time. And I know very well they look at the first 2 pages of my CV. They're not looking at the other pages. But the other pages are there for the avoidance of doubt. The recruiter apologized. But for me, what he has shown me is he doesn't have control over that client. And he is the head recruiter for that client. If you have no control over him, what's going to happen with me? Because what I do not believe in is interrogations. There is a difference between interviews and an interrogation. I do interviews. I don't do interrogation. Now, let me be clear to you about something. My CV is very clear. And it is a very good CV. Anybody who has bought the CV Masterclass understands the fundamental requirements for a successful CV. And this is the reason I do not do CVs for people. I don't draft CVs for people. You have to own your CV. Let this, what I've told you, be an example where you have to own your CV. Because there is always going to be somebody who is intimidated by your CV that seeks to interrogate it. You better own that CV. You better know that CV. That's why I'm not willing to kind of draft CVs for people. I'm not going to do that. I will give you the blueprint. I will give you the guide. I will give you everything you need, all the ingredients for a successful CV. I will not draft it for you. Because if you do not know your CV, they will rip you to shreds. You have to know that CV, own that CV, absorb that CV. I'm telling you right now, at my work desk, my workstation in the house, my CV is printed there underneath my computer. So I can just whip that thing out. I'm really proud of my CV because if I am a shop front for my experience, my CV is the door. Do you understand? I'm extremely proud of it because I have worked hard to work in certain organizations and understand how to navigate those organizations. But more importantly, I have been able to pivot through different organizations in different industries, charity sector, private sector, public sector, the third sector. I've worked in all them sectors and I make no apologies for it. Because you'll go to one interview and they'll say, oh, that you've pigeonholed yourself. You'll go to one and I never wanted to be that person to be I'm too much of a free spirit. I need to be able to pivot. And we've spoken about this in earlier podcast episodes where I've told you, you need to be able to pivot because they will find a way to put you in a box so that you're not able to. They will try to pigeonhole you, and there's nothing worse than being pigeonholed because it means you're unable to move freely. You have to get experience in different industries, like different sectors, but in your industry, different sector. You've got to. Because what you love today may not be what you're going to love in 5 years' time. There was a point where I loved private sector so much. There was a time I couldn't even stand public sector. And now I just have a tolerance for it. Because my perspective has changed since the pandemic. And even slightly before then, because I'm understanding that I'm going to pivot where the money resides. I'm going to pivot where the experience resides. And it doesn't reside in one singular place. It resides in different sectors. Now, you all who followed me from when I was on Snapchat know I did my SIPs, Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. Bearing in mind, I've already done all the legal stuff. I went to law school, got my master's in law. I already did all of that. But I knew that in able to pivot into a different sector, in a different industry, I needed to do that course. I got my experience there. And I'm able, if the industry, there's like a downturn, I can go and do procurement if I want to. I can go to buying and purchasing. And one thing is for sure, every single organization purchases something. And there is someone there managing that purchasing. I can go and work for supply chain if I want to. I'll give an example. The coffee industry is massive. Starbucks' supply chain is huge. Now, and this is from the farms that actually grow the cocoa beans right up into how they get them into the UK. I could work for the supply chain if I wanted to. So do you understand the importance of, number one, embracing and owning your CV, but owning your career in a way that when you are unfortunately in the situation of being interrogated, you know how to deal with those questions. I was deeply offended by the fact that this person doesn't know me from Adam, and you're not critiquing how long I stayed somewhere. You're not critiquing why I made the decision to go. So you're not asking those questions. What you're asking me is how I could do 2 contracts at the same time as a contractor, but you yourself was a contractor for 10 years. You didn't have the good sense to know that you could do that. But I know I could do it, and you've got a problem with that. That's wild to me. I don't want to work for someone like that. Then if I don't pick up the call or Teams one time, he's going to be ringing me down because he thinks I've got another contract and he's going to be harassing my life. No, sir. No. I'm not only protecting my peace, I'm also protecting my self-esteem. And I'm protecting what it is that I've worked so hard for. And that's my career. I don't have time to justify my career to somebody who chose to move from a contractor to a perm. That's your own decision. And I have no problem with that. I will too one day do that. But right now, I'm going to ride this contractor lifestyle till the wheels fall off. And I do so unapologetically, unoffensively, and I'm minding my business. But what you're not going to do is single-handedly try to crush my self-esteem because you've got a problem. You got a problem. And I'm not going to handle that. I'm not. And again, middle-class white man, I'm not doing that with you. I don't know what issues some of these people have with black women. It is really deep rooted. It really is deep rooted. This is why the center of their head has no hair. Because it's so deeply rooted, their hair has even run away scattered. Because the hair's pissed, scattered. What's all that? Like when you don't have to love my CV. You're not going to rip it to shreds because you yourself have a problem. There's nothing to rip to shreds. It speaks for itself. And this is why I say to each and every one of you, your CV has to speak for itself. You have to know it, own it, and you have to make sure that you know the difference between an interview and an interrogation. In this case, the hiring manager tried to use the recruiter to interrogate me. That's not what we're going to do around here, Liam Neeson. We ain't doing that shit. You know what I mean? Like, what is all this? He is a nitpicker. Pick. Well, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck? Because if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Yeah, pick. That's some bullshit. But do you guys get the signs, the SOS? Do you get the SOS? Save your soul, sister. S.O.S.S. Save your soul, sister. Yes, that's what I'm going to call it. S.O.S.S. S.O.S.S. Save your soul, sister. Because it ain't worth it. That headache ain't worth it. How many Nurophens you going to have before you start destroying your liver, girl? What's all that? Baby, every time I take Nurofen, I have a shit. So every time I go to the work, I'll be having shit? No, honey. I'll be on that shit all the time, but losing weight by the minute. Ain't gonna do that. Nope. No, ma'am. So I wanted to share this with you because my friend had her situation, Raina had her situation where her performance was attacked. And my little interrogation, unprovoked, minding my own business. And I will police my self-esteem. I'm human, just like everyone else. I bleed just like everyone else. It's taken years to get to this point. Years. You know what it felt like in my younger years, going to work and feeling like any day I could get sacked? Because I just didn't understand how to navigate. I didn't even know what I could or couldn't do. I didn't know my leverage. I felt like a sitting duck. I felt like my destiny was in the hands of other people, the people that said yes to me because they could so easily say no. Not fully understanding that I too am a powerhouse. That I too bring something to this goddamn forsaken table. Queens, I'm here to remind you that your self-esteem needs to be guarded like a rare egg, a golden egg. Because these people want to suck the yolk out of us. And we must rebuke it in the name of Jesus. So, I'm going to leave it there, Queens. I am going to leave it there. You know, my dad always used to say, those who have ears, let them hear. My friend says, those who have ears, let them hear. And those who do not hear will feel. Either way, let's use our 2 ears to hear, please. Listen, I've missed you guys so much. I'm so excited to be back recording the podcast. I've got so many case studies as well to discuss, certain things that have happened, cases in the employment tribunal that I feel like we need to talk about and bring here and have that conversation. What I usually do is when I see these articles, I read them, make notes and send them to my email address, and then, prepare an episode for us to have a discussion. I want to say, Queens, that I just appreciate you all so much. I appreciate you for fully immersing yourself in understanding the essence of what the Toy Talks podcast is about and proactively using it to your success, proactively using it to better your situations in the world of work. And I will go on record, as I always do, to say, the Toy Talks podcast is not just for people in the corporate world. I am no longer in the corporate world. It's for people, Queens, in the working world. It is for all of us. It doesn't matter your industry. It doesn't matter your sector. It doesn't matter your age. This is for all the Queens in the working world, because all our experiences are very similar, if not the same, irrespective of the industry, irrespective of the sector. But success is universal, darling. But how you define success is a matter for you. Guard your self-esteem, because the self-esteem is one of your highest currencies. Self-esteem will get you into them roles. Self-esteem will do you out of them roles. And we have to guard it, because when we're walking into these spaces where we are the minority, sometimes who we are gets lost in certain situations where we don't feel represented. We have to stand firm in who we are to represent ourselves. You see, this guy, this hiring manager that had spent 10 years as a contractor, all of this, he doesn't care about my self-esteem. He doesn't give a shit about me. His ego is a problem. His ego is bruised, and therefore he feels now the need to interrogate me and cause me to second guess myself. God forbid I rebuke it. I'm not going to do that, because the time and money that would need to be spent to rebuild my self-esteem is the money I would have earned from that role. So I better say, you know what, this isn't for me. I genuinely believe that what is for me will never pass me. And what isn't for me, that shows itself as not being for me, I'm willing to pass it. And in this case, I'm passing it. I'm not dealing with that. Listen, when I go to work, I like peace. Peace is good. Peace is tasty. Peace is fresh. I like peace. But if you want to go to war, honey, we could do that too, but it's very time consuming and not everyday war, because I don't want to do that. I like being able to do my job and feel satisfied that I'm delivering without having to feel like I have to fight you every time. No. And I've got to be honest. My contract now, I feel very at peace, because I just mind my business. I deliver. I make sure that me and the hiring manager are on the same page in terms of her expectation, and I mind my goddamn business. I don't get involved in the passer. The passer don't come near me. Why? Because I'm a contractor. They already know that that's not what I've signed up for. Let us try to make our money in peace. Let us understand the value of our self-esteem, and let us walk majestically with our crowns held high, facing our front. And in the words of Choma Goodhair, focus on your focus. Listen, I'm going to continue to use that for the rest of the year, because it's so powerful. Focusing on your focus, facing your front and focusing on your journey, honey. There are some people that have been recruited by the devil to throw you off your journey, like Mr. 10 years over there. Let us focus on our focus. Queens, I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting. Anyone who is interested in any of the masterclasses, we have them there live and direct on the toytalks.com website. We have the interview skills, salary negotiation, CV masterclass, redundancy masterclass, passing your probation, and many more. Go ahead and have a watch. Go ahead and have a look on the toytalks.com website. I will be leaving it there. Follow me on social media. My Instagram handle is Toya_Washington. My TikTok handle is Toya_Washington. My Snapchat handle is Toya Washington, which is all one word. Follow me on Twitter, Toya_W. And of course, if you have a work-related or a life-related dilemma that you feel that we can help you with here on the toytalks.com website, please email hello@toytalks.com. Your anonymity will be protected. Your name will not be shared. Nothing will be shared. We'll just be dealing with the dilemma at hand. As much as possible, give me enough detail as possible and the outcome you are seeking to help me focus on how I will deliver a hopefully successful resolution for you. Thank you so much for listening to the Toya Talks podcast. I'll be back again next week, Tuesday, for a brand new episode. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.